Welcome in, along with Mike Renner. I'm Steve Palazzolo. Today discussing the best rushing duos in the NFL. And Mike, we decided to put this list together internally here at PFF, and we started by looking at running backs, and then we started to say, well, what about the quarterbacks? And I think they are the key component now in today's NFL. Having the quarterback as a rushing component just makes the entire run game that much more difficult to stop. That's why coming in at number one, Cam Newton and Christian McCaffrey, the number one duo for us as far as running the ball goes.
Yeah, that's the way the duos are, sort of transforming in today's NFL, because two running backs can't run the ball at once, But when you have a quarterback and a running back in there, those option plays are so effective, and either guy could get the ball on any given play. And the Panthers last year, they utilized Cam Newton in that role once again, but to a smaller degree than we've seen in years past. Only 74 rushes for Cam Newton last year, but oh yeah, he still led all quarterbacks with 20 broken tackles on those 74 rushes. Still as dangerous as ever, but they might cut down on it in the coming years with all the injury problems he has had. But there's no questioning that that rushing attack flows through those two guys.
It's really difficult because every year we hear that Cam's not going to run as much. You have to take care of him, but short yardage, there's few better than big Cam Newton. How about at number two? It's Lamar Jackson and then newly acquired Mark Ingram with the Baltimore Ravens. With Lamar, if you cut out the fumbles, and there were a lot of them, over 10 fumbles on just designed rushes alone last year, but Lamar Jackson is like having a wide receiver with the ball in his hands. He is dynamic, and he is not a scrambling quarterback. He is a designed run quarterback, and that's exactly what Baltimore built around. That was the skill set they used last year.
Yes, and I think he was as advertised coming out of Louisville. We've seen some guys in years past who had a lot of success running the ball at the college level, guys like Johnny Manziel or even a Baker Mayfield, guys who scramble. So suddenly you can see other guys catching up to him. They're, the speed of the NFL game, they're not as effective in that regard. That's not the case with Lamar Jackson. He still looks like an electric athlete on tape. And if he would have started, all 16 games, those Ravens would have broken the team record, the single season record for rushing yards as a team. That's how effective that rushing offense was with him in there. And then they add Mark Ingram coming over from New Orleans, still one of the more effective between the tackles runners in the NFL.
And the reason why the quarterbacks are up here is because it just changes the numbers. It changes the arithmetic in the box. You have to account for one extra player, and you don't necessarily need a blocker. But, the Ravens want to cut back on Lamar's carries as well, so we'll see if they're true to their word. Now, the number three group, a bit of a projection here. It's Kyler Murray and then David Johnson for the Arizona Cardinals. We have never seen Kyler Murray take an NFL snap, but we saw him in college. Much like Lamar Jackson, a dynamic runner with the ball in his hands. Will Arizona tap into that running ability in the designed run game?
That's a big question, and for me, I think you have to. When you're actually, when he is up to speed in that offense, I think to maximize his talent, you have to use him as a rushing threat. Last year, 84.4 rushing grade, tops among all Power 5 quarterbacks in college football there at Oklahoma. Big reason why he won the Heisman. Now, the flip side of that coin is he's a rookie. Do you want him taking these hits unnecessarily with a Cardinals team that, in all likelihood, not going to be making the playoffs or making a Super Bowl run anytime soon? Do you want to subject him to that? I'm not sure you want to throw him to the fire too much right away, but to get the most out of him, I think you do have to maximize those legs. And he's every bit as good as, not as good as, but he's every bit in that Lamar Jackson category of freakish athleticism.
All right, coming in at number four, it's finally a running back duo, Melvin Gordon and Austin Ekeler of the Los Angeles Chargers. Two guys who are two of our highest graded running backs all of last year. Even when Melvin Gordon was banged up, Ekeler stepped in, was extremely productive.
Yeah, Ekeler, 85.1 rushing grade this past season, ranked 6th among running backs. Now, he didn't have a huge sample size, but when he was in the game, extremely effective, over 1,000 all-purpose yards. So return yards, rushing yards, receiving yards, an all-around threat for that Chargers team. And then you obviously know about Melvin Gordon, one of the best running backs in the NFL.
But he might be underrated at this point. Todd Gurley gets all the hype, but just because the only difference between those guys statistically last year was the touchdowns, and we always talk about touchdowns being opportunity-driven. Gordon was extremely efficient running the ball.
And he's been running his entire career behind one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. That Chargers line consistently ranks bottom 5 for us. Even last year, even with all the additions they've made to it, still a pretty poor offense.
So that's the other big difference between Gordon and Gurley. And then rounding it out, we've got Nick Chubb and now Kareem Hunt with the Cleveland Browns. Of course, Hunt has had his off-field issues, but when on the field, he is fantastic. And Nick Chubb didn't have the big sample size last year, but our highest graded running back last season. These guys could be special.
Yeah, they really could be special, have the potential to be much higher than number 5 on this list when all is said and done. When Kareem Hunt does see the field, 104 broken tackles since he entered the NFL, most among any player in the NFL over that span. And then Nick Chubb. He looked like freshman year Nick Chubb back at Georgia, the way he was running the ball. Yes, exactly. He looked back to full speed, just dragging guys in that Browns offense. He's just a weapon on the ground. So they have just a plethora. You can add in Duke Johnson to this list. They just have a plethora of weapons in that Browns backfield.
Yeah, Chubb was the only running back with an elusive rating over 100 with at least 100 carries last year. So very difficult to tackle. Be sure to check out ProFootballFocus.com for the full breakdown. It's your best rushing duos in the NFL.